Well, joining us right now, she is a New York-based civil law attorney who actually used 2020, when we're all enduring this global pandemic, to reinvent herself. How did she do that? By crafting a cookbook with over 70 original recipes. Joining us right now is Danielle McKenna. Danielle, welcome to Monday Night Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How did your New Year start off?
Well, my New Year started off with a lot of food, as you can probably expect, but it was quiet and it was nice. And luckily, thankfully, I'm healthy, and I can't say that for a lot of other people, unfortunately, around me. But yes, it was very nice. And how was yours?
It was relatively quiet, which is the way I like it now that I'm kind of a little older. Now, if I was younger and a little rebellious, well, I probably wouldn't be openly saying that it was quiet. I'd be wanting to be out and be festive. But the times that we're living in, and seeing that do you live in New York City?
I do. I live in Queens, New York.
Okay,
so in Bayside, Queens.
So basically, I mean, every year folks gather in, New York City to watch the ball drop, and we know that they kind of culled that down, like, oh yeah, we don't want so many people coming in watching the ball drop because we're worried about Omicron and the latest variant right now.
Right. No, exactly. That was something that we used to do as teenagers, go to Times Square, but that's long gone. I'm in my older years. I like a quiet New Year's myself. So it's nice to just be around with family and close friends and stay low key and eat and drink at your own home.
So you really did have a choice when many of us were watching the initial wave in March of 2020, and here in Massachusetts, our leaders, the governor Charlie Baker. They all wanted us to kind of stay home so we could flatten the curve. I don't know if they did that in New York under Cuomo, but we're going to fly 14 days. That's it. And here we are 2 years later.
Exactly. 2 weeks and we thought we were in the clear. And then here we are exactly 2 years later. My colleagues and I thought we would be back in court doing our thing, and fat chance. It's still really, really slow for the courts to open in New York City. Just very, very low volume is going on just to play it safe. So that's what really sprung me into using my kitchen as a source of empowerment. I was home. My son was in school virtually, and I always loved to cook. I was always a foodie. I grew up that way, being Italian-American and having traveled a lot of places. But I never cooked to the extent that I cooked in the last 2 years in my whole life. So it's really something that I wanted to document. So I really started to memorialize and photograph my food pictures and cook for my family, my friends, and so the cookbook was born.
How much experimenting did you have to do? I would think that 70 is probably a pared down version. If you're like me and you have an Italian American background, you probably could have had 150 or 200 different recipes in this book, but you had to maybe pull back a bit. No?
Oh, easily. Even now, there has to be a book number 2 because I forgot this recipe, and I forgot the struffoli, and I forgot the fra diavolo, and there's just a lot of different things I didn't put in this one. But I had to end it somewhere so that I can actually finalize this and put it to bed. And I wanted to release it before Christmas because there are some recipes in here that are kind of geared toward the holidays. So I was able to get it done, which was it was a little bit stressful at the end, but luckily I was able to do it. But yes, I could have written a Bible of 1,000 recipes if I really wanted to. Yes, a lot of it is Italian American oriented, but a lot of it isn't. Some other cultural dishes that I loved that I included. So have a little bit of everything.
So is this your very first book, or have you written other books?
No, this is my very first debut. So it was self-taught, self-published, and it was a lot to learn, and I did it. So that's what I celebrated my New Year's. I toasted to myself and to my designer helping me get this done over the course of the pandemic. So life leads you in different directions. You never expect that you're going to be a cookbook author.
Sure.
But it is what it is.
Now, did you already have some of these already written down, or did you have to do a lot of experimenting to make sure that you had, or you a pinch here and a pinch there like my grandmother?
Exactly. Well, a lot of the family recipes, nobody wrote anything down.
No.
You're lucky. You're lucky you have 3 things on an index card somewhere that you can't even read anymore. So a lot of it was, asking my mom and remembering, trying to piece together from memory how my grandmother did certain things. So certainly there was a lot of digging deep into the archives. But the new stuff, yes, I had to kind of recipe develop. And my son was my biggest taster, my biggest critic. He's 15 and he eats like a champ. So every night, whatever I would make, he would test and say, you need a little more cheese in this, or this is too well done. So it was just fun because it was feeding my family, it was being creative, and it was kind of, people would bury their head in the sand. I would bury my head in the flour. Kind of was a cathartic, therapeutic time for me to be cooking.
And it seems like a lot of the stuff you have that just some of the stuff that I'm reading here, that it spans from appetizers to, maybe wraps and sandwiches to full-on entrees and even dabbling in a little bit of desserts.
Yes. So I wanted to give a little bit of everything because, nowadays entertaining isn't as large as it used to be before the pandemic, but hopefully it'll be back and we'll have our big Super Bowl parties again and, we'll have our big gatherings. But I wanted to give a little bit of everything, and I tried to give a little cross-section of my favorites. And living in New York City, we're exposed, I'm assuming it's like that where you are as well, you're exposed to so many different types of cuisines that it's not just the Italian-American cuisine, it's everything. It's Asian, it's Greek, it's Spanish, it's, Indian. So we have a little bit of everything. So I kind of included a little bit of what I like, which is everything in the cookbook.
So I would ask you, this almost kind of reminds me of Julie and Julia, so to speak. Have you ever seen that movie with Amy Adams?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. This is where Amy Adams is somebody who loves Julia Child and actually takes one of Julia Child's books and she sets out to do every recipe in the book. And it would blog about it. It's kind of similar, I think, of that, where it's something that you put this together with different recipes, you test them, and then you basically compile them into this book. Now, once you were able to test out the recipes, and you get the thumbs up from your son, what's your son's name?
Luca.
So,
Italian. Nice Italian. And my family too. My parents, my boyfriend, my cousin. Everybody kind of had their input in the book, in the recipes. So, but I think they were overly critical because they just wanted me to make the recipes over and over again for them.
Smart move, though. Were there any recipes in here that you had to take great care, or maybe there were recipes that you had to leave off because maybe your mom or your dad might have said, "Oh, no, that's a family secret," because again,
like the trade secrets.
Yes.
Well, yes and no. I mean, a couple of people, I post a lot on social media. So a lot of the recipes I post, naturally people want the recipe for. A lot of the pictures I post, I should say, people want the recipe for, and they're not in the cookbook, and maybe they're a family recipe, but these people, like the Instagram community, these people have been following me from day one, and I feel like people have supported my journey. I call it hashtag from litigation to salivation. People have supported me from day one, and I feel I owe it to them to kind of give them a recipe, and it makes me feel really good when people actually do make it and they say, this is the best puttanesca I've ever had, and I love this recipe, and they'll tag me in it, and they'll share that. So that makes me feel good, especially people that are professionals, maybe never had the time or the luxury of cooking for themselves ever before this pandemic. My friends that didn't even know how to boil water are now like making meals for their family. So that makes me feel really good. So I have given away a couple of the trade secrets.
Again, if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with author and attorney turned author Danielle McKenna, talking about her new book, From Courtroom to Cucina, 70 recipes that took me from litigation to salivation. How did you come up with,
yes.
How did you come up with the title?
Because a lot of the people that I would communicate with on Instagram and Facebook would say, every time I look at your food, you make my mouth water. It's drool worthy. You make me salivate. So I'm like, litigation, salivation. Okay. So I just put it together. I was kind of taking a lot of pictures of my food. I don't have a professional camera or anything. This is all taking place like in my home, on my terrace. I'm looking at onions and photographing them from different angles. I mean, my neighbors must have thought I had lost it, but it kind of worked. And when my friends would say, you take some really good pictures, you have a really good eye. I'm like, eye? I mean, I know I have a good mouth, but I don't know I have a good eye. And that's how it kind of formed. That's how the cookbook formed, because I had these great shots of my food. And my family was saying, this tastes great. And I just put it together, and one thing led to the next. And then the cookbook was born.
And you have no culinary training to speak of, right?
Nothing. I mean, unless you accredit, like I say, the College of Grandma or the University of Nana, that really was just watching them by osmosis growing up. That's kind of how I learned. But, I mean, they only cooked what they cooked. And my Nana wasn't making tikka masala or, pad thai. They were just making Italian-American traditional dishes. So from that aspect, I kind of had to teach myself how to cook the way for other cuisines.
So you get a draft of this together. You got your manuscript. What happens next? Did you self-publish this, or did you go out and seek a publisher?
I did. I self-published it. Initially, I had a hiccup with like a vanity publisher. I don't know if you're familiar, but these people that help out first-time authors, you have to be careful because you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. So long story short, I did not use the vanity publisher, and I went the self-publishing route. So I had my own photographs, so all the food photographs are mine, and then I had a cousin's cousin who's a designer, like a graphic designer. So he helped me with the layout, put things together. But we did it on Amazon, so it's available on Amazon, paperback, and the hardcover's coming soon. But it was really, he never had any experience working with Amazon either. So we were kind of learning as we went. So at the end, it became a little bit stressful, especially with the editing. So I had a colleague that I used to, an attorney colleague, help me with the editing part of it, because through the pandemic, ironically enough, she got her editing certificate. So I was helping her. So yes, everybody kind of did a little bit reinvention during the pandemic, and so it really was a tribute to the resilience of all of us. And so I say it's a cookbook, but it's also kind of a motivational story, because everybody has some gift or something that they do, a hobby that they can tap into and kind of cultivate to get through these crazy times that we're in.
You tease the idea that you were able to take a lot of the things that you enjoyed via your family, but you're also someone who loves to travel, and you've traveled to different countries. Anything that you've sampled from different countries? Did you experiment and find a way to get it into your book too?
Well, I've traveled a bunch before the pandemic, so I've been, all over Europe, Greece, Spain. I've actually been to Africa years ago.
Wow.
And so, yes, so I eat everything. Basically, I can count on one hand the things that I don't like. I'm not a picky eater. So a lot of lamb. There's a few like Greek lamb dishes in my cookbook. Love lamb. So that, in that respect, and a lot of spicy food. I do love tapas. So just a lot from my travels, but also a lot from just the restaurant scene in and around New York City. We have everything here. So fortunately, you don't really have to travel far to obtain, food from different countries, which is nice.
And I see you also have something in here called a prized pizza Napolitana. Why is
Yes.
yours prized? What's so special about your pizza Napolitana?
Well, it is a 72-hour dough fermentation process. So, they say good things come to those who wait, and I can attest that if you wait 3 days for pizza dough, A, you're going to be hungry for it, but B, it's going to taste better. The texture is going to be amazing. So that's why, and I've posted a bunch of my pizzas. I have a lot of friends in the pizza community on Instagram, and pizzeria owners and pizza chefs, and there's just something special about being able to make really good quality pizza at home. My friends and my family have tried it, and they say, I knock it out of the park every time I take a pizza out of the oven. So I have to go by that, and they are really good. I really do love pizza. And my nana was making pizza from when I was young, really young. So I guess I learned that skill from her.
And does she have a special way of making her sauce?
Her sauce, she basically made a marinara sauce, or how people would say marinara sauce,
yep.
For pizza, with garlic, basil, sea salt, olive oil. And so she would use like a marinara sauce for the pizza. She would make pasta with other kinds of sauces, sausage sauce or like a beef bolognese. But for the pizza, she basically used the marinara sauce. And I tend to kind of stick with that too.
So I would ask you, have you, prior to doing the cookbook, were you also a fan of the Food Network or any food channels that you'd find yourself watching as well?
Sure. I would always throw on the Food Network. I was one to be on the treadmill in the gym watching the Food Network. So always involved with food and stuff like that. But like I said, I didn't have as much time as I have now. With things being virtual, I'm able to cover a court conference virtually and have a pizza in the oven. So I'm kind of able to do both at once, which is a nice thing. But I do miss the social aspect of going to court and feeling like a lawyer, dressing up, going up the courthouse stairs and interacting with my colleagues and judges and court staff, which doesn't really happen anymore. It's few and far between compared to what it was before the pandemic. It was every day, all day, every day. So in that sense, one thing was born, one thing left, but hopefully we can strike a balance soon.
So I would ask you this. So you send off your final draft, everything has been edited, the layout is complete. What was it like to get your first book, your cookbook, in your hands? What was it like?
Oh, it was surreal, because also with Amazon, you don't know how it's going to come out. You ask for a proof. Mm-hmm. So when they send you the proof, you're thinking, I don't know how the color is going to be. I don't know, how the page quality, you don't really get to see it until it comes. And then you're like, I'm looking at myself. Like, this is crazy. Like, I'm on these pages, And so it's surreal, but it's really rewarding, because it's something that I have something to show for, being in quote unquote lockdown for 2 years. I have something to show for my son. So when he gets older, hopefully he can make some of these recipes with his own family, because I didn't have the luxury of having them written down, So now I have to kind of pass the baton to him, but he has the luxury of a lot of these written down. So it's just a really, really nice, satisfying feeling. And also it really makes me feel good to help people that want to be able to cook, that have the passion to do it, but that lack the confidence. So in that respect, I feel like I'm kind of like a coach, like a cooking coach, saying, like, if I can do it, anybody can do it,
So you mentioned that, you post pictures of some of the stuff that you made. Have you got any feedback from anybody who's had a chance to purchase your cookbook?
Yes. So some kind customers actually posted some reviews on Amazon, which is really nice, saying how authentic and self-explanatory and very easy to follow my recipes are, which is awesome, because that's what I was aiming for. I didn't want to be complicated. I didn't want people to, turn the page and say, I can't do this, I'm not making this, this is a waste of money. I really wanted to break it down for people who had no culinary experience, who are novices in the kitchen, like I said, maybe professionals, maybe never cooked a meal in their lives. I wanted them to be able to thumb through this and say, wow, like, she makes it look so easy. But, the one thing that I can't teach people is passion, and that you have to have. That's something you can't buy, you can't feign. It's either there or it's not. So if it's there, then you're halfway there. Then you can learn. But if you don't have the passion, you're never going to be a good cook. So a lot of these people, they sent me really nice reviews, friends and also people who I don't know saying, you know, this is authentic. My mother always made things this way. I always get told, like remind people of their grandmother or their mother. I guess I'm an old soul. So I get told that a lot, but I like it.
Yeah, we're speaking with Danielle McKenna. She is author From Courtroom to Cucina, 70 Recipes That Took Me From Litigation to Salivation. And she's here sharing details on her new book. So I think you kind of teased it when we started talking about a possibility of another book. When do you start working on cookbook number 2? Is that something you plan to do in 2022?
I would love to. And now that I've gone through my first rodeo, I feel it'll be a lot easier this time around, having gone through it and seeing all the different challenges. And also my designers, like, when are we doing cookbook number 2? I would love to do another one. Every day I post stuff. I post food. And I don't necessarily write the recipe down every day, but so I have some nice pictures, and I say, you know, this would make a really good second book, because there's so many that I didn't hit this time around. There's only 70. And I mean, I can count 70 appetizers in my head, let alone, you know, the full gamut of appetizers, entrees, desserts, etc. So as I don't know, I was thinking maybe a Christmas themed one or holiday themed one, but I don't know if I want to limit it to that. But I definitely want to do another one. It's almost like people explain when they have a tattoo. They get tattoos, and they're kind of like, they get one, and then they want to get 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and you can't stop. So I think, like, writing a cookbook is kind of like that. I'm ready for my second tattoo.
And I think, and I think the one thing that I actually failed personally to mention as well is it's not necessarily food, because you also have craft cocktails that are listed in this new one, right?
Yes. So I have a few cocktails. I have desserts. I have soups. I have entrees. I have breakfast and brunch ideas. And then I have a whole section on the tools that people need in the kitchen to get started. Because, again, I have a ton of stuff, but not everybody has all those appliances and kitchen gadgets. So you don't really need anything overly chefy, but there are certain things that you'll need and you'll use over and over. So I go through a whole section of that in the cookbook as well, like a getting started, which is helpful. So it kind of really breaks down the process from start to finish of what people will need for those recipes and how they can approach it. How they should just have fun with it.
So as we wrap up here, and we just got a couple of minutes left here, anything that I haven't asked you in regards to the book, but you feel is important to sharing with the listeners?
Well, the foreword is written by Ornella Fado. I don't know if you're familiar with Ornella, but she is an Italian dynamo living in America. So she wrote the foreword because she is very influential in the Italian food scene. She's actually been interviewing restaurateurs and owners of restaurants for years. She has the Brindiamo Network is hers. So I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's a pretty well-known public figure, and I was honored for her to have written the foreword of my cookbook. So hopefully when things get a little bit more open here, we can do some signings and some events, and so I'm looking forward to a lot of the in-person stuff with her.
Any chance of you expanding on this opportunity? Because personally, I can see if you're seeing great success already with this first book, you're getting a lot of public support through social media. The sky's the limit. Other than books, you could probably do your own cooking show, maybe open a restaurant. Any of those appeal to you?
That would be great. I mean, the possibilities are endless. I'm open to a bunch of possibilities. Over the pandemic, I actually got a mobile food vending license, which was like an online course, and I got certified for that. I also trademarked my brand. So my company for law, my law firm is Have You Covered. So my trademark for the cooking is Have You Covered in the Kitchen. So I trademarked my logo. So I really stayed really busy during the pandemic because I really didn't know what direction I was going in. But now people are saying, you can't turn back now. You can't just go back to just being a lawyer. You can't leave us hanging. So the possibilities are endless. And I think, and I'm open to them because I know I need to have my toe in the food pool at some point. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure where it'll lead. I love the possibility of cooking for an audience. I started a YouTube channel. I haven't really posted on it recently, but I do love to instruct. I love to interact with people. I did some Zoom cooking lessons. Ooh. So, I mean, there's just a lot there. As far as brick and mortar, I don't know. I mean, the restaurants had it tough this pandemic with all the lockdowns. So, you just want to keep an open mind and have fun.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for your time here on the radio program.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You got it. There she is, Danielle McKenna, from Courtroom to Kachina. That's all the radio program we have here. You've been listening to Monday Night Talk